Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to part 3 of our Awkward Conversations webinar. We're still getting a few people here online this afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, and 11 a.m. out on the West Coast. So while we're getting started here, we will introduce and recap our last webinar in the series and our special panelists today. We have Natasha Khemkar and Chris Murdoch. Natasha and Chris, come on in and let's see your beautiful faces. There they are. Natasha is the CEO and founder of Melita Advisors. She has got years and years in HR and talent acquisition and is a life coach and can coach us all to be better employees, leaders, and people. And Chris Murdoch is our Chief Sourcing Officer and co-founder of IQ Talent Partners. We are a talent acquisition firm based in Nashville, servicing the world. So Natasha, I'll let you take it over from there if you want to give us a recap and welcome everybody to what's going to happen today.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I'm really happy to be here. And Chris, I'm looking forward to see what curveballs you send my way as we do our role play later on this morning.
I'm ready to channel everything passive aggressive. I'm ready.
Oh, great. Well, in our last webinars, we were talking about awkward conversations. We talked about what makes conversations awkward. And typically it's those differences of opinions where emotions are running high, whether they're on display or hidden, and high stakes. These are high stakes conversations, and that's what makes it awkward. It makes us really have to stop and think about, are we putting our foot in it? How do we engage in this? How do we not damage relationships? And we talked about also how we share conclusions, and we often don't share the path to our conclusions. Last time we had a conversation, we talked about when emotions really show up strongly. So when you get that angry colleague that you're talking with, or somebody who's relentless about pushing their point of view and not feeling like you have an opportunity to participate and collaborate on a solution. What was the number one thing that we learned last time not to say to someone who's super angry and hot under the collar? Calm down. Don't say it. Don't say it. And always, if you need to, step away, take a moment, call a break, come back to it when you've had some time to process, when your partner's had time to process. As an executive coach, I will tell you, it doesn't matter what level you are. We lose our tempers. It happens. And now it's a matter of how you handle it and when you step in and when you step out of those kinds of conversations. So we've done a couple of role plays and we're going to do one again today. And today's conversation is really about that one who retreats, that partner that you work with, that instead of expressing the emotions very openly and sometimes very strongly, so you get that cartoon whoosh effect. This is actually the time we're going to talk about the colleague who is going into silence and they sort of retreat. So Stacy, I don't know if you want to set us up a little bit here.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm going to set us up with, well, Chris can say if he has anything to add to that. I'm going to launch a poll here so we can talk about, you guys can let us know. We all have awkward conversations in the workplace, but what do you really find is your toughest to have? The angry person that's defensive and loud, the emotional person, we're going to call that one the crier, or the person who's just unengaged and they say, I'm fine, and you just can't, they avoid you, and they might do a little gossiping behind your back, and you can't really get to the heart of that. So we just wanted to hear from you guys and who you think is the toughest. Chris, you have anything? What's your personal answer on that?
Oh, my personal answer here, and what I've always had the biggest issue with is the unengaged coworker. The I'm fine, the one that goes, says to your face, oh, this is great, this is awesome, and then goes to everyone else and says, Chris is a jerk. Like I really don't want to do this. And vents and creates gossip and issues beyond my knowledge. And I'm that guy that's like, I can't fix what I don't know is broken. Sure. Unless someone's transparent with me and tells me something what's wrong or what they don't like about something, I try not to get defensive. And if I do, call me on it and we can talk through and resolve it. So that's my biggest one.
And Chris, you're not alone. Looks like 58% of our folks here agree with you that that unengaged, the I'm fine, I'm okay, walk away, is the person here. I'm going to share these results with you. Is the person that feels is the toughest for people to engage with. So Natasha, why don't you you want to set up and outline exactly what the problem is there?
Yeah, absolutely. But before I do, Stacy, I'll just mention that if you want to hear more about how to deal with that angry coworker, you might want to watch the last webinar that we ran, and that you can find on IQ Talent Partners YouTube channel. So more there. It's definitely not easy to deal with an angry coworker, particularly if you're not someone who processes your emotions out loud. But let's talk about this unengaged, the I'm fine person, I'm going to keep things close to the vest. Well, as we said, the flip side of the one who throws power around when you see them, or is really visibly angry, is this employee or this team member or colleague who retreats. It shows up as the one who gives a superficial, sure, if that's what you want to do, right? Or the one who says, well, maybe, and kind of, and they dance around the answer. Or the key partner who just stops participating and seems to be avoiding the conversation. This is how retreating and silence sort of shows up. What these scenarios all have in common is that there are important themes that are top of mind with this individual that they are not sharing. It remains unspoken. And what happens here is these are honest thoughts and feelings, and they are below the surface. But because we're choosing not to share them, because our partner is choosing not to share them, they remain unresolved. So I will say to people, be Elsa, let it go. So raise it and resolve it, or let it go. And if you're not willing to let it go, that can be very toxic. And actually, this is why, I concur with Chris, often the toughest colleague to work with is the one who isn't willing to engage and isn't willing to have the conversation openly. So I'd love to get you to weigh in, Chris. Before we do that, I'd love to hear from our audience. Just drop in the chat for me. What ideas do you have on this question? What are some of the reasons people might choose not to share what's actually going on in their minds? So just take a moment, drop it in the chat. And Chris, let's hear from you. What do you want to share here?
So this goes to the echo chamber, that gets created, oftentimes by people who are unwilling to come to the people that can actually help resolve or even answer a simple question. When we started our vacation policy, it was the flexible PTO. We didn't put limits in. But because we didn't put limits in, people started using the word unlimited. We've never said there is unlimited PTO. We just don't have any hard and fast rules of how much you can take in a year. But we still had issues where it says, we can only approve it if there's enough coverage. So the way our business model works is you need to make sure that we have to make sure we can only give so many people PTO all at once. And evidently we had told a couple people, no, we've already got too many people that are taking out that week or those days. So you won't be able to take the time off. Let's figure out a different solution. Rather than coming to us and asking more questions about why, people started talking amongst themselves, and they were getting angrier and angrier, and this unlimited PTO pops up. And before you knew it, we ended up with the most scathing Glassdoor review because we evidently lied about having unlimited PTO. And so, at the next all hands, we took that as a conversation. We kind of said, okay, this is obviously a misunderstanding. And we realized that we needed to be repeating ourselves a bit more about what this means. And so we explained the whole policy. The Glassdoor review was taken down.
Oh, interesting.
It was taken down. And so the aspect there was, and this is where I have a question for you about anonymous feedback. One of the things that was suggested was give anonymous feedback, through a suggestion box or some other way to collect anonymous questions or concerns. In this case, it would have been easy enough for us to send that person the policy and help them understand why we couldn't approve their PTO. That was on us. So we made sure that at that point to make sure if we declined somebody's PTO because we didn't have enough coverage, we explained why. So we were much more communicative to avoid misunderstandings. But how do you handle this idea of anonymous feedback? I mean, we took it as anonymous feedback. We were able to evidently resolve it for that person. But what are your thoughts on that anonymous feedback collection and process?
So anonymous feedback can be incredibly useful. One thing that's interesting is Glassdoor themselves. I remember I was with an organization that was receiving some pretty harsh Glassdoor reviews, and we think they were from former employees. And I mean, people who'd left 2-3 years earlier. It's kind of interesting to see that sort of pop up in real time when I was there. What they highlighted though was when you see a flurry of activity on Glassdoor and their negative reviews, it's typically because the employees don't feel that it's comfortable or safe to share that feedback internally using existing channels. There is a place for anonymous feedback in organizations. So even something as simple as a suggestion box or an anonymous Google form, if there is such an animal. But the idea is give people multiple channels of sharing feedback. So you can always say, you can always talk to your manager, you can talk to your people team. Here are other leaders in other departments that you can talk to as well. And we have this other channel. It's when you don't show that those are working or they're useful that people start to really push towards anonymous. And so if you do see a push towards anonymous, really take a look at your other channels and see if they're broken, because they very well might be.
Yeah, in our case, at the time, we didn't have like a direct manager. You didn't have a direct leader.
Right.
So we created pods of people that could get together once a month, talk through things. And then somebody from that group would bring it to, if there was a significant issue, a person from that group would bring it to the management team.
And what a great solution. What a creative solution. Yeah.
Because and the thing is, and I understand why you need multiple channels, but my biggest concern with the anonymous feedback is it's not a dialogue. It's hard to, how do you have that dialogue? It's one-sided solution rather than a group effort or a one-on-one effort to resolve an issue. So we're kind of left to kind of figure it out because I'm not being told. I don't get to like dig in. So it's okay. We fixed it. Is this clear? And we asked that question: do you have any questions? A couple people asked some clarifying questions in the all hands. And then that review came down. So it's almost like we felt like, okay, that's confirmation that we made it clear.
Yeah.
At that point. But I'm it's like, I want to solve the problem. Like, I can't fix what I don't know is broken. Please tell me.
Yeah.
And so if I get defensive, call me on it. Like,
and you took a very important step, and that is you took the feedback and then you asked about it. Now, fortunately, people were willing to engage in conversation about it and give you some insight and give you perspective. Without that, you could very well be solving the wrong problem. Right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want the A for effort. Like, I want the A for actually putting in the effort and then solving the problem, not trying to just solve it.
Yeah, such a good point. And so what's so interesting are some of our audience members have dropped in the chat some of the reasons why people may not say what's on their mind. They don't trust you. They don't think their voice matters or will be heard. And at the core of it is something that one of our audience members put in here. It's fear. On some level, it's fear. How am I going to be perceived? Is it going to damage the relationships? Am I going to be looked at as I'm making something overblown? What's really going on? So, this is something to consider. If you're the one who has something on your mind that you're not sharing, I'd invite you to consider 2 questions. The first question is, what's really on your mind? What do you really think about the situation or the idea or what's being proposed? What do you really think? And the second question I'd ask you to think about is, what would you do or say if you actually brought those ideas to light? What is your core message there? And so just like in our last session where I recommended that we all look for shared purpose, for a common agenda, and use that as a springboard for conversation, the same is true here. So if you are really able to have a genuine conversation about what you want for yourself, for your team, for your partnership with the other person or the other team, how would that change things? Right? It's a very important question to tackle. If you're the partner now, so on the flip side, you're not the one who's kind of retreating, you're the one who's dealing with someone who's retreating, you might pick up on a vibe, right? You get a funny feeling, you go, they're usually really active. Why are they being so quiet? And you don't quite know what's going on. You can't quite put your finger on it. This is where I'll ask you to be vulnerable and for you to be persistent. So, because if you think about what you want for yourself, for your team, for your partnership, it's the same questions. Look for the shared purpose, right? Even if your colleague says they're okay and you have an inkling that they're not, it's very likely that you're not okay. You are not okay. They may say they're okay, but you're not okay. So this is the time to employ that vulnerability and persistence.
And you don't do that by saying, what the hell's wrong with you?
No, you don't. And I will not, I guess I better scratch that from my script in our role play today, Chris.
Yeah, that's one that falls into the category of, don't call somebody out in a meeting or directly. Don't tell someone to calm down. Just like, here's like, what's your problem? Don't ask that.
Exactly.
What's your problem?
So Stacy, shall I get us set up for the role play? Are you ready?
Sure. Do you have any more of those actionable steps, besides the vulnerability and, going through, I know in our pre-talk, you kind of told us like what silence looks like. And so before we role play, I know you role play some actionable steps, but maybe a step 1, 2, and 3, your best practices with regard to dealing with a silent person, regardless of the way that they're taking out their silence.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the important things is to really try to unpack what someone's motivation might be. And when someone's retreating, it's not something you can just come out and ask, hey, why are you saying everything's fine when clearly everything's not? Like, that's a little aggressive.
Chris's point. Yes.
Right.
That doesn't work in relationships at home. It doesn't work in your professional relationships.
Yeah. Don't do it to your folks. Don't do it to your partner. Just not nice. It's a little bit, it's harsh and a little bit unkind. Put the other person at the center is what I would say. Right? If the relationship is important and it really matters to you and you need for it to be successful, you need to invest of yourself in it. That means putting the other person at the center, understanding what pressures they're facing, understanding what they might be dealing with, and testing what you think is happening. So this is really important when someone's not really willing to engage in conversation. You're going to play a guessing game unless you figure out a way to ask. Right? So if you have certain clues that are giving you a sense of what might be going on, say that, right? Ask the question, hey, I'm picking up on this, and this is happening in your world right now. How much of that is influencing how you're feeling right now? Or how much of that is impacting whether you have enough energy or time to spend on this right now? Maybe we should defer this. Sometimes the solution can be very, very simple. We just have to talk about it. I think what happens is we make assumptions so quickly. We add interpretation to people's actions or lack of action, their behaviors or the things they say or don't say. We attach a lot of meaning to it, a lot of interpretation, and we do it super, super quickly. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble. We get ourselves in trouble when, no matter what side of the table we're sitting on. But it comes back to that idea of shared purpose. Find out what the common agenda is and drive towards that. Make it very present in the center of the table. Make it your centerpiece.
I love when you said you have to be invested, because I think our audience in the poll, they said this was their most awkward of the awkward that they had the toughest time with. And it's really easy / lazy to walk away. If someone says, I'm okay, and then you just walk away and you're like, well, they said they were okay.
Yes.
And then that's your excuse as the leader to say that you did something, right? And obviously from our poll, people don't really want to engage because they said this was the hardest one to engage, and you can just take that I'm okay and walk away from it and use the word investment, where you to be a good leader and to really get to the crux of it, you have to force yourself to be awkward and to turn back around and and get back there to the heart of the matter.
Yeah, I just picture that, that meme, the I'm fine meme with the dog sitting at the table and everything's burning down in the background. That's the theme here. I'm fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. I swear, everything's fine. Or yeah, gotta go, bye. So, and on being on Zoom or rather than being in person for those organizations that are still remote or are moving into hybrid mode, it's so easy, right? On Zoom, and you start to ask a question and click, they're gone. That leave meeting button is like a port key in Harry Potter. You touch it and you're zapped away somewhere else. And so you can really, you're so busy, you've got to really make an effort to reach out. So our role play today, we have me. I am a new head of talent acquisition that Stacy's just hired. And I've been tasked with rolling out some changes to the recruitment process. And Chris, actually, we hit it off during the interview process because I totally get his client group. I was really grateful to him when I started. They're a big client group. They're my most significant one. And he wrote a really warm introduction for me to his organization. And I felt like, yeah, we've got a good partnership starting. This is a great start. So here I am in week 6 of the job, my new job. I have to roll out these changes to the talent acquisition process. And for some reason, Chris is resistant to meeting or talking to me about the process. In fact, I've emailed him like, I don't know, 3-4 times now. We've been in meetings where we've talked about this in group meetings. I cannot get on his calendar and I can't get on his team's calendar to roll this out. And I don't know what's going on.
And because we have a really big budget here, I have like time passing like 1 week. So 1 week later, and then I'll scratch it out and you'll try to reach me again. So
fantastic.
Right, let's go.
So I'm tapping out my message, or actually we're in a meeting and we're just ending. Hey, Chris, before we go, I'd love to make sure that we get some time to talk through this changes to the recruitment process because the launch date's coming up.
Yeah. I'll get back to you. I'll send you a note later today, to set up a time for us to talk.
Perfect. Thank you.
1 week later.
Slack. Hey, Chris, I wonder if it's okay if I reach out to your VA to see if I can get some time on your calendar, or actually I see that you've got some time on Friday morning around 10 o'clock. 30 minutes should be okay if that's all right with you. Sure,
go ahead and grab that time and then I'll cancel 30 minutes beforehand. 2 weeks.
30 minutes is a long time.
2 weeks go by.
So 2 weeks go by and I've had a meeting with my boss, Stacy, and she's sort of wondering like, hey, what's going on? Because she's put on her objectives for her OKRs for the quarter, this thing is going to be launched. So now I'm getting a little bit stressed and it's, I'm 8 weeks into the job and I'm a little bit nervous. What's going on? So I ping Chris's VA and get some time, but then it keeps shifting and moving. And so I send him another note and I don't get a response at all.
And then 3 weeks go by.
3 weeks go by and I finally get a meeting with Chris. So here we are in our meeting. And something's off.
Yeah, it's quarter end, Natasha. I got to get going here pretty quick. But did we cover everything you wanted to talk about?
So actually, Chris, I'd love to talk to you about this recruitment process launch. I know that this is important, that y'all have talked about at the executive team level. I'd love to get a sense of your perspective on this launch and whether the timing works.
I don't really have time to talk about this right now, but it's quarter end. I got to go. We can talk about it later.
And he clicks. He's gone. He's gone. So really not willing to engage.
And now God, why won't Natasha get a hint? Like I'm talking to my colleague who's sitting next to me. Like I keep blowing her off. Why hasn't she figured it out yet? I don't want to do this.
So Chris happened to talk to the head of sales operations. So I get a chance to talk with them because they're doing some hiring. And this person clues me into the fact that Chris is actually not supportive of this process. I've let my boss know. I let Stacy know that, hey, I think we may have some challenge here. Chris may not be supportive. I'm going to try and figure out what's going on. And Stacy's fully supportive of me, and like a great leader that she is, I get a little coaching and we do a little practice, and I'm ready for my conversation with Chris. So I do manage to get more time with Chris. It's after quarter end, so there's really no excuse. His other meeting canceled because now I'm like buddy with his VA. And so I know I have time with him. So here we are. Chris, thank you so much for making time with me. I know quarter end can be extraordinarily hectic, and I just wanted to start off by telling you I really appreciate the time. Yours is a really important client group for me, and I know you have a lot of hiring to do, and I want to make sure you can achieve your goals, and I can help you by getting the right talent in the door.
I appreciate that. It's we've got a lot of we've got a lot of heads to fill, a lot of seats to fill, and I think we're moving and grooving. Everything's great.
So Chris, can I share with you a little bit of backstory for me? What's
Sure.
going on right now? Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, I've been in the role for just over a couple months now, and one of the big deliverables I have is to launch this new part of the recruitment process. The thing is, I'm not sure that everyone's on board. And I'd love to get your perspective on this, because what I'm concerned about is that we may be going down a path that not everybody wants, or maybe doesn't want right now. So what do you think is going on with the leaders at the executive level? Is there support for this?
To be honest, I'm not a fan of these changes, and honestly, and I apologize for kind of putting all of this on you, but these are the 12th change. This is the 12th set of changes we've made to the process in the last year. I mean, it even predates you. I'm just so frustrated with constantly having to change the process, add this, take this away, do this. It hurts productivity on my team. My folks need to be selling. They need to be recruiting. And we've spent so much time over the last 12 months changing the process. And that involves training, that involves time away from their day to day. If we're going to do more change, I want to make sure that it's it. Like, is this it? Are we going to be done for 12 months before, or are we going to have new changes every month? I can't keep doing this. And I apologize. That's why I've been avoiding you. And avoiding these conversations.
Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing with me what's really going on. I had a feeling something was up, because I feel like we really hit it off in the interview process, and then I don't know, I just wasn't feeling a connection there.
Yeah, I was taking it, and I was taking my frustrations out on you, and I know better.
Hey, but even if it was 100% me, and in this case, I own this, so it is 100% me. I'm a big girl. I can take it, right? And what I want from what I'm hopeful is that I can help solve some of these problems for you. So I heard you mention a few things. I heard you mention too many changes, that this is one of, I think you said 12, good heavens, that it's disruptive to your team. It slows things down. And is this it? Are there more changes? So I'd love to dig in on each one of these and see if we can come up with a solution that'll work. How does that sound to you?
That sounds great. And what we'll do is we'll bring a few other people into the process who are also just as frustrated with all these changes. And we'll all get together and we can kind of talk through how to roll them out and make sure that these are the right changes, and we're not going to have to change the changes. So I think we can do that if we work on it together.
Okay, so just a little pause here. We're going to fast forward through the conversation of the backstory on all these issues, and then we're going to wrap. So Chris, thank you so much for sharing with me a little bit more detail in these areas, because you've sparked a lot of ideas for me. It is completely understandable that you're frustrated, and that you're frustrated on behalf of your team. I know that you want us to be successful together, and I know that you need us and we need you for that. So thanks for investing the time in this conversation. It means a lot to me. And I just would reiterate, for us to have that strong partnership, I think we can role model for the rest of the organization. And I'm feeling really good about our conversation today. Not to bias your answer, but I'd love to hear how you think things went today.
This is putting me at ease. And I felt the partnership when you came in, but when all this stuff happened, I allowed it to cloud my judgment, and I became the road runner and just started running away anytime I saw you. So I apologize for that. And I do feel more comfortable now that we have that kind of relationship where we can resolve these things without me having to complain to so-and-so and avoid.
Hey, we're human, right? And we're also learning how to work together. But I'm just really glad that we have the opportunity to get on track. And I am willing to fight the right fights with you. So we're in it together. It's
awesome.
It's one team and a solution that we can come to together. So thank you so much. I'll work with your VA to set up time for that meeting with the rest of your team so we can problem solve. And, I don't know if you're comfortable, if you want to be there, don't want to be there. I feel like you've given me a ton of information. So if it helps to free up some of your time, I got your message. In fact, I'll summarize this for you and send it back. If I've missed anything, let me know. Okay.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you. Thanks.
I just think Natasha is really so perfect, and we all would love to be like Natasha. But I think one thing that an overriding theme that we can learn from this was the theme of persistence. And I think that's something that we have trouble with because it almost becomes more awkward every time they say no. Then you have to rally your own self to have to ask again, which we don't want to do. And we'd rather just, again, go back to walking away. And I think with a person like an awkward conversation like this one is the overwhelming theme of you have to be persistent and keep trying. And then Natasha even enlisted an ally and did a little research onto maybe getting someone that might know Chris better to give her a little bit of a heads up. So that's another awkward conversation that might be awkward to have to ask someone that you don't know that well, but maybe knows Chris and that can help you find out. And again, I think it just all goes back to persistence. Yeah. And then when you finally get there, being open and making sure they don't have the fear that they talked about in the chat and that they will trust you, and then letting them know that of course their voice does matter. So yeah. Any closing words?
Well, in recruiting, we have polite persistence. That's what we train our sourcers and recruiters. You're politely persistent. In this case, it's empathetic persistence, and that's how you can resolve problems with the yellers as well as these silent types.
Exactly, Chris. And someone's put in the chat about how nice I was to you. It is really about that empathetic persistence. That's absolutely right. Get into the box, be there and feel the feelings that other person is feeling, but it doesn't mean you're sorry for them. It means you're able to help coach yourself and coach them out of it, right? Once you understand what the problem is, and I hope you saw that I was inviting Chris to share, and I wasn't going to let it go. And I also reinforced the behaviors that I hope that we could participate in together going forward. And if you notice, one thing that I did was I asked permission a few times. How does that resonate with you? How does that sound to you? I gave different options. Again, this is a way of I'm not trying to be soft here, but it is inviting someone to participate in this and to stay with you in the process of resolving the problem and not say their piece and walk away. That's not productive. So the invitation continued through the conversation. It's a really important element of this, these awkward conversations. They don't have to be awkward.
I think you can drop the mic on that one.
That's right. Well, we're about 4 minutes over, so I do want to let everybody go who we do try to keep these to 30 minutes. We know everyone has such busy lives and busy schedules, but we will hang out for another couple of minutes if anybody wants to drop a question into the chat or into the Q&A or just take anything off their minds. We'll hang out with you for just a little bit longer if you do. Otherwise, we hope you have a wonderful day. We will have a recording of this emailed to you tomorrow. And like we said at the beginning, you can always check back to our YouTube channel and review it there. And we'll have one more in our Awkward Conversation series next month, wrapping it up with part 4. We'll send you an email to invite you to that as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, KK.
Okay, it doesn't look like we're going to get any questions.
Yep, we're ending.